If you've completed N4, can you go to university without getting matric in the process?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Firstly, by the way, let me just correct myself about something I said earlier. The CFOs at FET colleges, not all are retired accountants. Some are still young who have decided that they want to go and serve the FET college sector, which is what we really appreciate.
Okay.
You know. Well, this issue of qualifications from FET colleges and their relationship to university is a matter that we are addressing at the moment. Because it's not automatically the case that if you have actually passed an N4 or even sometimes an N6, you can be admitted to university. This is a matter that is a priority. As I was saying in my input, we need to ensure that the relationship between FET college or any college, qualifications and universities are articulated. That is what the word that we use, so that you are able to have recognition and progression where necessary. By the way, we think also that this matter will contribute a lot towards attracting students to FET colleges, because they will know that they have a choice either to go out to work, or those who want to continue to university, they will be able to do that. This is a priority issue that we want to address as part of our post-school education and training system, which is in our green paper, by the way, that we released earlier this year for public discussion. Free education for the poor, yes, we are going to have it. We have already started introducing this post-school. The first thing that we have done is that from about 2010, we've introduced fee-free education for the poor in FET colleges if they are following what are known as the National Certificate Vocational and the N courses that one of the callers was talking about. Because we want to direct our students to occupations, to training for occupations, not just short courses that do not lead to any qualification, because we have a huge shortage of mid-level skills in our country. So now, FET college students who come from poor, who is poor? Those who come from families who earn less than 122,000 rands per annum, and who have been admitted to college, they don't have to pay a cent. So we use also this opportunity that if there are colleges who are taking chances, wanting registration fee or application fee, that's illegal. They are doing something that is very wrong. They need to get hold of us, those students who are being taken for a ride. But also we've started with university students to say, building on what government started in any case way back in '94, these loans from the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which students have been receiving who come from poor backgrounds. But because of the demand, government has not been having adequate amounts of money to say every student will get an equivalent of the full amount of study required in any 1 year. You find that on average students get given 40 to 60% of what they need. But what we've started doing as from recently is that final year students at university, whether third or fourth year, depending on whether your degree is 3 or 4 years, are given an equivalent of full loan of study, which would cover fees, accommodation, and food. And if they pass and complete their studies past that final year, that gets converted into a bursary, they don't have to pay at all. So already we have introduced elements of this, but also let me mention something else. That for some of the areas of scarce skills, like engineering, medicine, and others, poor students, we are already now giving them full bursaries for study, so as to ensure that where we have a shortage of skill, we must make sure that those students do not have the problem of where to look for money. They must actually be fully supported as much as possible. By December this year, we will be coming up with a complete plan of phasing in this free education, at least up to the first undergraduate qualification for poor students.
Okay, all right. Let's go to our tables now, starting at table number 9. I think we've got a question. Where's table number 9? Oh, okay.
Yes.
If you could say your name and then ask your question.
Thank you, Peter. Cynthia Reinders, and I represent the Association of Private Providers of Education, Training and Development. Thank you, Minister, for making the time to address some of the questions that will be posed today to you. My question relates to the misconception that private providers serves only the needs of the elite in South Africa and therefore are not entitled to funding or bursaries from the Department of Higher Education and Training. Thus, my question, Minister, to you is there any scope in a policy shift to subsidize or extend NSFAS funding to private providers? Thank you.
Minister?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks, Peter. I thought you were still going to take. I thought you were still going to take some more questions. This is nice.
Yeah.
One question, one answer. Cynthia, there's an important question you're asking. Unfortunately, the demand for us as a country to support students in public institutions is so huge. We have not even, despite all these positive advances we've made, we have not reached our destination. For instance, on the earlier matter I was talking about, of free education for poor students. Therefore, government policy at the moment is that we are supporting poor students who are going to public institutions because of the demand and the necessity also to strengthen our public education system, because it is that system that in the main attracts the majority of students. We have not come across a situation where maybe we have got a program that is exclusively offered in a private institution that we need so much that maybe we think we need to fund it. It is possible that we may find that going forward. But at the moment, the needs to fund our public institutions is still so overwhelming, and we cannot be able to fund students who actually go to private institutions, unfortunately.
Minister, in your speech you talked about increasing enrollments into the universities. A couple of things I'm worried about when I hear that. It's a great idea, but one, are you going to have enough institutions to absorb those numbers? Secondly, more and more I keep hearing businesses concerned that the quality of the graduate is not as good as it was in the past, and this must be something going wrong. I'm not sure whether it's the high school person getting into matric not having as good a matric as in the past, or that the tertiary institutions themselves are pushing people through the system, because when they get to work, some are even saying that they've got poor writing skills and yet they're graduates. There's obviously a problem. What is going wrong?
Yeah. Well, firstly, on the issue of space, yes, we do not have enough space to take all those students, for instance, who qualify to get to university. That is why, amongst other things, we are expanding our university system. The one being the building of these 2 new universities, which will go some way, really, in addressing the shortage of university space. But I must say, Peter, that we must also change the mindset of our people to say that post-school education does not mean only university. And it's very important that we do that, because no country in the world, perhaps with the exception of Cuba, and that's not a political statement, it's a fact, can have more of its students going to university than a college system. The only way we can be able to absorb many young people is if we direct most of them to colleges. That is why our own plan is to increase more spaces in colleges than in universities, though we will increase also in the universities. But that shouldn't be a problem, because if we also have this relationship, articulation between colleges and universities, starting at a college will not mean a dead end. It will mean that you go there because you are attracted, you want to get a qualification and go out, or you might want to get a qualification but still proceed to university. If that route is open, which is what we want to create, it should actually not be a problem. By the way, the other matter that we should not forget that I mentioned is distance education. Because we are of the view that we have to strengthen distance if we to provide more opportunities. But more than distance, our existing institutions, that's also what we want to do, what we call multi-purpose education center. If an FET college campus gets used from 7 till 2, and it's not being used from 2 till the rest of the day, that is wasted space. We want as a department to say, maybe if there is a possibility, we can begin to offer some adult education programs in that building, and also even offer university courses in the evenings, for instance. Something that we will have to reopen so that we provide space for workers who want to improve. So we are looking at a whole range of things to increase this space. On the issue of the quality of graduates, as I have said, it's an issue that we have identified as government. That is why we are embarking on all these measures to improve the quality of offerings in FET colleges and the quality of offerings, especially in former black universities, as well as putting other resources like physical infrastructure that will actually improve the performance of students in our institutions.
But why are they getting graduated? That's the issue. I mean, if you're not up to scratch because of whatever reasons you're saying, that's fine. Fail them and find a way to make them pass. But it seems as if that it's either the bar is being lowered or something's going wrong because they're graduating.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a pass one, pass all, Peter, in our institutions.
But this is what business is complaining about.
It's the unevenness in quality. That is the issue that we've got to address, because students will pass. Those also who are institutions that have got lower quality, they work hard. Many of them, by the way, are bright students, are good students, but because of quality, they are not getting what they should actually be getting. That is why we are putting all these efforts. But what we are saying, especially in a platform like this, government alone will not succeed. We can play a leading role, but employers help us also to actually expose these graduates to the workplace, because normally that makes a huge difference. Apart from the problems that we are getting at the moment, that you come across unemployed graduates, sometimes it's inexplicable why a BSc chemical engineering graduate, because not only a social science, is unemployed, which means also there is something that is not happening in terms of absorption even of graduates who have got the minimum skills. That is why we must focus on the relationship between the SETAs, your universities and FET colleges and employers, so that we are able to pick up all those, as many of these graduates as possible, to be either to be employed or to be given learnerships and internships so that they get exposure. That is the national challenge that we have today.
You've mentioned SETAs a couple of times. I know that you've had your criticisms of them in the past. Can they be reformed? Because a lot of money has been poured into them and the contribution hasn't been tremendous in relation to the amount of funding that's gone through that system.
Yes, the SETAs will have to be reformed. They are being reformed. That's one of our priorities as a department. Despite some initial resistance, including one which took us to court, I'm pleased to say now that there is an emerging consensus that we do need to work together and that the sitters have got to change. So there is improvement, although it's still a long way to go. What are some of the things that will have to be changed very quickly? First of all, what we have changed already is governance structures, to also have more effective government participation in the boards of the sitters. Before it was employers and employees, often trade union representatives, driving skills development, and even, by the way, implanting this wrong notion that sitters are private institutions. Sitters are not private institutions. The fact that the levy comes from employers does not mean it's their money. Once a levy goes to treasury, it's public money. And the aim of government was to say, those sitters need to drive sector skills plans. To say, for instance, in the tourism industry, what skills are we short of, at what levels, and therefore, how should the sitters be funding and also creating partnerships to provide for the shortage of skills? We believe that the monies in the hands of the sitters are significant enough for us to be able to make a difference. Hence the partnerships and the need to reform them. And one other thing we are saying to the sitters, by the way, please get out of your offices in your Santins, Morningsides, or Constantia. Get closer to where we are needed most. Every FET college in this country wanted to have a sitter office so that we improve the placement of FET college students with employers. And as I say, our sitters in general are coming along, although we still have some way to go.
All right,
Yes.
let's go to table number 8. A question there, table 8.
Good morning, Dr. Nzimande, and congratulations for the direction and the leadership that you've given. Thank you very much. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. How are you?
Thank you. Well, I thought I should say that before I pose my question. I'm requesting you to go a little bit deeper into the specifics of quality assurance of lecturers' training. How will they be monitored to guarantee the production of world-class artisans? You're very aware that there are deeply embedded issues of racism and low expectations as far as our young black Africans are concerned. And secondly, I would like to see a very critical dialogue based on Pablo Freire's principles of pedagogy of the oppressed between yourself and Angie Motsecha. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Let me start with the latter issue of the relationship between the Department of Higher Education and Training and the Department of Basic Education. It's a very important point because our own approach is that we have 2 departments of education but one system of education. We don't have 2. The reason why the President split these departments into 2 was in order to allow dedicated focus in each phase, your basic and your post-school. And there are a number of areas that we are working together. The one obvious one is on teacher education, because teachers are trained in universities to go and work in schools. So there is a necessity that we actually work together on. It's a matter that we're dealing with in a very conscious way. And also the relationship between what is offered at school and what is required post-school. There are a number of things that we've got to iron out. One example, life orientation is offered as a subject in matric, but is not recognized by many universities for purposes of entry. That doesn't make sense. A student gets an A in life orientation, It doesn't get recognized. You don't get. Yet life orientation is so central, given the challenges that we are facing today with our young people. Now, on quality assurance of lecturers, yes. The first thing is the one that I've said, that we are developing a dedicated lecturer training and upgrading program for FET college lecturers. Because many of them are teaching programs they've never seen the workplace. And we want to ensure that they know what is required at this point in time so that what they teach is relevant. But over and above that, in our green paper, those who have looked at it, but even those who haven't, one of the things we are proposing should be created in South Africa is what we call the South African Institute for Vocational and Continuing Education and Training. We have looked at many countries that have been very successful in vocational education. They've got a dedicated institute that is focusing on issues of quality, issues of training of lecturers, and those institutes, by the way, are made up of employers, trade union representatives, experts in the area who come together to actually focus on this. We are already the comments we are getting are that it's a very good idea that we establish this institute which will be dedicated to assist us with quality in our FET colleges so that we produce the kinds of graduates that are needed by our country and its economy.
Another issue that, the flick through newspapers, magazines, and you walk past certain streets, signs everywhere, trained to do this, trained to do that. A lot of fly-by-night institutions are floating around. What are you doing as a ministry to make sure that our people are not taken by these institutions that are literally fly-by-night?
Hey, we arrest this fly-by-night speech. Bob. But the challenge we have, they tend not to get the sentences that we hope they will get. Many of them, they get released and they go back and do the same thing. But we have prioritized this with the Minister of Police to actually arrest fly-by-nights, charge them. But we think a bigger challenge also is with our students and parents, that they must make sure that when they approach a college, they check that the college is properly registered with our department. Not only properly registered, that it's properly registered for the programs that it is offering. Because some colleges are registered with us for one program, and then they end up offering 10 more, which they are not registered for. In front, you will see the registration number, which is yes, okay, but they are offering more than what we've registered them for. So we're calling upon our students and parents also to check that when they register in these colleges, but also the Association of Private Providers, I've met with them a couple of times to say, please help us. These fly-by-nights are not doing your name good. Because if you have got so many fly-by-nights, but we are also not standing up and be firm and say, no one must offer college education, for instance, if he or she is not having an entity that is properly registered and qualified. If you don't do that as an association, we are also killing your name, because increasingly private will be associated with fly-by-night. So it's something that we are focusing on. And also we are calling upon our communities that if they come across a fly-by-night college, please inform us, or you go and report to the police so that we get rid of this. Because that is one thing that will destroy our education system if we don't deal with very firmly. But let me say this, Peter, also, that it's precisely the reason why we want to expand your public college system that is of quality. Because these fly-by-nights are usually exploiting the fact that there aren't enough post-school opportunities so that we are able to absorb our youngsters. In the medium to long term, that actually will be the solution to this problem.
And stiffer sentences. Okay, table number 9. Where are we?
Thank you, Peter. My name is Munik Kublal, representing APED and one of the largest private providers in the country, PC Training and Business College. Minister Blade, I want to commend you on your principle of espousing the public-private partnership as espoused in the NSDS 3 and in the Green Paper. But I would like to bring to your attention the many challenges that the private providers are facing in engaging in this public-private partnership with the FET colleges and even with your own department. I can quote one particular example. We made a submission to your department making an offer with respect to the BIFSA site, which is the former Building Industry Federation site in Springs, which is an apartheid flagship site for artisan training. Minister, I want to inform you that this site is recommissioned and is available for a public-private partnership to train thousands of artisans in the construction and engineering field. Thank you.
Okay. I think it was more a statement, though.
Yes, I think so. Except that the issue of difficulties, you know, is what I just wanted Peter to address very quickly, you know. Our own view is that there's lots of space for private providers. But also, as we say, private providers have a duty and responsibility to also support this national mission of producing your mid-level skills. If you're doing artisan training, all in good. But the problem also we've had with private providers, they have tended to focus on short courses, a quick buck, you know. We've come across outrageous examples. For instance, the one example we came across was the training of domestic workers by a private provider for 3 weeks at 49,000 per domestic worker.
No.
You know?
Is that a true story?
Yes, it is a true story. It is a true story. That is why we were taking the action we were taking. That is why some of the people were taking us to court. Because those are things, the unit cost in some of the training by private providers is frankly totally unacceptable.
Are you sure?
And some of this, no, it is true.
They were not training butlers for...
No. That's more than many of our university fees in 1 year.
Wow.
It is a fact.
That's remarkable.
And I think this is a challenge, you know, because private providers, we need them to assist us in this mission, but at the same time must make sure that they don't fleece, especially our sitter system.
All right. Let's involve our viewers once again. I think Vuya's been getting some tweets. Vuya, what are the viewers saying?
Guys.
Well, thank you, Peter. I know that, Leanne, you've got a question.
Quite a few questions. There's one that's just come through now. Here's one, and I do hope that the minister is well, Peter, I know you'll help the minister. It's quite a long one, but it says, I request that the minister visits the NWU in Vanderbijl Park and Potchefstroom. Go and see how our kids are treated. It is pathetic. That's the word that's used. And I'm very disappointed why the ANC is allowing so much racism in these universities. The white student area taught in their own language. They are kept in special residences outside the premises, but blacks are kept outside these other residences. Why is government allowing it? A very concerned mom, please help our children. That is signed off from Bessie. So you can hear that one. That's let me just tell you once again, the NWU in Vanderbijl Park and in Potchefstroom.
All right.
That's the one brought up for concern.
Okay, all right. And then one last one, Minister. Is the Minister aware that there are ABET educators out there who are now contracted for more than 15 years without any benefits? That one from Pietrus Long.
Yeah. Another question pertaining to sort of the race issue. Clayton writing in and saying, why are we still referring to it as white universities and black universities? We're 20 years down the road. Should this not be a case that is forgotten? And then finally, I think this is your third question here. What will be your fourth one? Okay. Maybe we should hold back and you can just cross to us a little bit later on so we can give you some more questions. Lots of questions coming in about education. Peter, back to you.
Okay, Vuenia, thank you very much indeed. So race is quite a concern still. We had the REITs 4 that really put it into public discourse. But Vanderbilt Park, they talk about white and black residences. Does that still exist? Are you aware of that? And they said that you should come and visit. The students, black students, are being treated badly there.
Peter, yes. In fact, it answers the concern of the last caller about the fact that why 18 years into our democracy sometime, there's still reference to former white and former black. It's because some of these things are not just about the past. In some instances, they are still about what's going on in the present. Some of the members who are participating here might be aware of that University of the Free State incident of black workers who were abused by white students. And there was an investigation into that and a report given, which actually showed a lot of prevalence of discrimination, excuse me, on the basis of race and even gender. We are also receiving reports that we are acting upon, for instance, on what is called, what do you call this? We used to call it treatment. What is it called? Initiation. Yes, that's the right one. I was using the township one. It's initiation. It's initiation, which also sometimes tend to take certain racial forms. But what we want to say, rather than to go into detail, we act on these matters if they are brought to our attention. If the caller has got something as he's talking about in terms of Vanderbilt Park campus, please bring those to us. But since also it has been raised, we will actually approach the university. Our DG is here and our officials are here because our own style as this department is that there is no issue that is unimportant, no matter who is raising it. If there is a problem, of course we know that usually this requires systemic intervention rather than just chasing many problems at the same time. But we do both. We will chase the problems as well as engaging in systemic intervention to transform institutions. Yes, we still do get complaints around issues of these kinds of problems in our institutions. On ABET educators, yes, we are aware. In fact, the whole adult basic education and training system, which now is becoming our responsibility as well, we've just completed a very comprehensive look into this because we want to, our intention is to transform your ABET centers into being like kinds of local community college type institutions. Because at the moment, they have educators that many of them are not properly trained. Even those who are properly trained are not properly employed. So we want to change this environment so that it becomes a very important arm of post-school education and training. Not only to deal with those who want to improve their formal education, like Uputsipo, Hot Sticks, who is here, who has done very well. I should have congratulated him again myself. But these centers should also be training centers for short skills that are needed by communities. For example, in rural areas, fencing is something that is needed, for livestock farming, to protect it from wandering and so on. So if these centers could also be offering 2 months, 1 month, baking, and doing a whole range of things so that it's not just formal education, but also our own vision is that every South African who is out of school and is unlikely to go back to school or has never been to school must be able to have a place to go and get a particular skill that he or she needs at a particular point in time. That is the system we are seeking to build.
We've talked about racism, and I was just wondering, earlier on you said that the disparity between the likelihood of a black student getting a job after university compared to his white counterpart is huge. Is it racism? What is going wrong? Why is a young black guy not being able to get a job. I would have thought that with the whole BEE equation, that there's a line in there that forces these employers to get these numbers up. So is there something that we're missing?
Certainly there is something that we are missing. This is a very big challenge that we must take up as South Africans. I wouldn't like to respond to it in a manner as if one is attributing blame. But there is an element of racism. But I don't think that's the only issue. Of course, there's also an element of gender, because women also tend to be to have less opportunities compared to men. So it is a challenge that we must tackle as South African society in order to ensure that employment opportunities really become equal. It's for this reason that we've got the Employment Equity Act. We've got affirmative action, because part of that is actually aiming to address some of these continuing practices that are actually creating problems. That is why I'm saying to employers, you really have a challenge, a role to play as well, to make sure that your workplaces are open so that we create opportunities, especially for those of our youth that we have already invested in by taking them as taxpayers. It's our money, to colleges and to universities.
All right, let's go to table number 25. Table 25, where are you? Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Minister, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Faith Nyilika, and I'm from Transnet. My question is on the technical skills. I just want to find out if your department has done a skills audit countrywide in all the companies to find out which technical skills are in shortage. And by doing that, obviously, we have to sensitize the universities and say, we've got shortage of civil, and we've got enough mechanical. That's all I wanted to find out. Thank you.
That's a very important issue. We are the only country in the world, by the way, where the president has a performance agreement with the ministers. And it's not a PR exercise, it's very real. We sit with the president here, reads the agreement and say, do you agree? Do you think we should amend? No. Will you achieve this? Yes, I will. It's a very serious matter. And one of the agreements we've reached with the president as the department is to address this matter that we don't have reliable skills data in the country. We've never really collected that in any significant way. We are starting this project now. It's a big project. It's the only one of its kind in the world, I'm told, that we are starting now, where we want to know the skills of every South African and be able to create a system to update that as well, as people get extra qualifications or experience. It's a huge thing. Of course, you can't eat an elephant all at once. It's not something that we are going to be having in the next 3, 4, even 5 years. It's going to take longer, but we've got milestones to say we need to create a certain basic data. We are also using the SETAs because we think that the SETAs are very well placed to collect this information about shortage of skills or availability of skills in different sectors, and they are closer to the sectors. So we also want them to be to be part of this, so that we know exactly where do we have shortages and where do we have to address. We do have lots of information in bits and pieces. The task of our department is to pull it together. It has really never been systematized so that we are able to do what we are wanting to do. So, but we can't wait and say because we don't have this information, we can't begin to address obvious areas, shortage of artisans, shortage of engineers, whilst we are collecting this information. It's quite an art, which we in our department, we call it fixing the aeroplane in the air.
Okay.
Yes.
Table 13, where are you? Table 13.
Good morning, Minister. My name is Ntombi. I'm from Wholesale and Retail SETA. I know we've spoken a lot about SETAs, and I would like to really bring to the Minister's attention that SETAs have contributed a lot into skills development in all sectors of the economy, and we have men and women in these organizations that are competent, that really are carrying the mandate of government in skills development. But we continue to get a general negative publicity that just uses the same brush for all of us. And we just want to check with the minister whether isn't it time now the Ministry of Higher Education and Training also lead a campaign to manage and change this perception. Thank you.
I agree. I agree, but it takes two to tango. I did indicate here that we are very pleased that we are seeing a lot of cooperation from the SETAs now. Precisely because I don't want that we continue throwing stones at the SETAs. But that must not blind us to the challenges that we still have in relation to the SETAs themselves. For example, we do not have sector skills plans. Very few SETAs have that capacity. But we are then not throwing stones. We have said, let's work together with those SETAs to develop these sector skills plans, because we have to admit that in the past, even in terms of the people employed in the SETAs, many of them were not people who were experts on skills in their sectors. Sometimes the focus was on giving out training tenders to people outside. That's a challenge. We have to change that. We have now got to employ more people who actually understand their sectors. So, yes, SETAs play a very important role. We recognize the positive developments that are there, but there is still a long way to go. As I say, it takes two to tango. I will increasingly become positive, Bob Joel, also, when I see all the 50 colleges with SETA offices sooner rather than later. As part, yes.
Okay, Refilwe Mzizi tweeted saying, please ask the minister, what is the future of scientists in South Africa?
Scientists.
Yeah.
That's a very important task. One of the performance agreements I have with the president is precisely the production of scientists and researchers, which is a task we are handling together with Minister Pandu, the Minister of Science and Technology, because it's an area that concerns our two departments. It's a very important issue. That is why one of the things that we have mentioned here is that we have increased, and we have a dedicated fund, which we also want to increase, for postgraduate students. One of the challenges we have in our country, which we are seeking to address with this, is that especially black students who come from poor backgrounds, they want to go to university, graduate, and go to work because of pressure at home. Siblings that have got to be educated, or poor families, and so on. Which then creates this anomaly that we do not get enough students who want to do postgraduate studies. So, because scientists are produced in that way, if people do especially PhDs. That is why this is an area that we are focusing on in funding. Because also you need to fund those students a little bit decently, so that they don't have to be looking, behind all the time. Otherwise they can't think. Because we are also creating future innovators who are very much needed in our own society. So it's a very important matter. And by the way, also, the fact that in South Africa we have won the square kilometer array, well, most of it, not all of it, it's a huge opportunity for us that this does not become a training ground for the usual suspects from the north of the world, but that this becomes an opportunity for local and African, regional and continental scientists to be trained, and we produce more of them. So I cannot agree more with you on that matter.
All right, I know you're an educator yourself. You spent some time teaching. Do you miss it? And secondly, what did you learn there that you want to change as an educator, the things that you saw when you were in that environment?
Yes, I do miss academia, I must admit. I love academia, I love teaching, I like working with students, supervising research. I wish I could have more time to do that. Coincidentally, one of the things that I would say I learned there, which is a challenge now, is precisely this issue of postgraduate students. I'm still very much concerned, that's why we are acting on this, it's a matter that I'm passionate with, is the production of more PhDs for our country, especially black PhDs. Now, to produce PhDs, you need supervisors. The challenge then, which we are addressing now, is that our academics are aging. That is why one day, although this was somehow not reported correctly by the media, I said that it's too early for academics to retire at 60 or 65, because many of them are still fresh, some even at 80. Well, then the media said, I said academics must retire at 80. I never said that. But in order to address this, we need to be using many of our retired academics to supervise young PhD students so that we are able to produce as many as possible. That is one thing I learned. In fact, that is what originally brought me into education, because I was not an educationalist. I was an industrial psychologist. I was more interested in labor studies. But then I did some work in 1987, I remember, on why are we not producing enough black postgraduate students. At least now I've got an opportunity to do something about that.
Okay, well, let's see what happens. Table 21. Table 21. All right, if you could stand up, say your name.
My name is Joseph Shembe. I will then assume that the minister will agree with me that I come from the progressive and responsive SETA, which is a MICT SETA. My question is more on a transformation strategy of a higher education, specifically to the distance learning institutions. You will agree with me that the former Minister of Education, the late Kada Asma, led a major program of various distance learning institutions. My question is that, is your department now reconsidering the measure of the distance learning institution against the backdrop that we need to target adult a workforce, which now currently we do know that the previous apartheid system was not able to actually create an environment for a black workforce to acquire formal educational, the formal educational qualifications. In short, is your department reconsidering that strategy, as much as you know that UNISA now
all right, comrade.
does not got that capacity?
You've used up all the minutes of parliament.
Yeah. Well, I see sitters are standing up here for free advert. As I have said, it's a two-way process. You will be progressive MICT when we both, with your department, establish a training institute to support community media as one of the roles of your sitter. So that's a deal we are making in public here. No, we are not reviewing the measures. We are looking at them, though, in terms of what impact is that having. There is a specific measure that we are going to undo. The measure between the University of Limpopo and, well, between Tefluop and Medunsa, because it hasn't worked. We are undoing that particular measure. We are very reluctant to say that we are looking at all measures with the possibility of undoing them, because that will be another 10 years of huge restructuring that can be very diversionary. Our focus instead is where are the weak points and how do we strengthen the weak areas, like we are doing with Walter Sisulu University now. That measure has really never functioned. Our focus is how to make it work so that we are able to provide that. On distance, just a few quick things I want to say on distance. We have published a document, a proposal from our department for public comment on distance education. Please look for it. I've given Peter our call center number, which I hope you will be able to read on anything, to inquire on anything. And you can also go to our website so that you can actually look at this particular document. What we are indeed looking at is strengthening UNISA, obviously, in terms of distance, other institutions, but also beginning to look at strengthening distance education for vocational education and training. Something that we had before, but we do not have now. For instance, that would help in addressing what are called artisan aids today. In my speech, I spoke about people who are doing artisan work, but they are not paid as artisans because they are not certificated. And it's very difficult for those workers to go back to school. If you have a distance institution, they could just upgrade their theory, upgrade it, get registered as artisans and be paid as such. So that is an issue that we are looking at, that we are not only just looking at other academic, but we are also looking at vocational education and training, components of it to be offered through distance.
All right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to rush quickly back to Auckland Park and get last questions from our viewers from Vuya and Leanne. Vuya, Leanne?
Right. Well, thank you very much, Peter. You've got some questions there, Leanne, that you've been talking about this morning.
No problem.
Yeah.
Here, this one is from Rashada Ram saying, what will be done about grade 9 learners enrolling at FET and failing repeatedly because of the curriculum pitched too high, example maths? That's one of the questions from Yashada writing to us. Another one, oops, no. Don't do that to me.
It's doing something else.
Oh,
Let me just
don't
chip in
do
with
that
the
to me.
question. Minister, one of the things you said in the beginning of your speech was that in South Africa, 3 million young people between the ages of 18 and 24, not in employment, not in education or any kind of training. What is the specific intervention that you are undertaking to address this? And is the problem maybe mainly urban or rural, or is it a problem that is spread evenly countrywide?
Okay, I can get you some more questions now. I'm back up and running. Ruby writes in and says, please ask our minister, is there education opportunities for over 50-year-olds? Here's a question, over 50-year-olds.
Okay.
And then another one from Letabo saying, my issue is with Afrikaans schools in Pretoria. Black children are not accepted there. This is what Letabo is saying. And they struggle to find space in English schools. So this is a very, very big problem. And then just finally, Papi Masukela saying, FET colleges gave me a 6-week course to educate local school educators. And I did just that, but my school cannot absorb me now.
Sure.
So
after that 6-week training.
After 6 weeks. So there you go.
All right. Okay.
Right.
Those are the questions, Peter. Minister?
Thank you very much, Vuya and Leanne. I'm not sure we're going to have enough time for all of them, but all right, repeated failures. What are we going to do with it?
We have just, interestingly, Peter, completed a very important review of this problem, especially the high failure rate in the national certificate vocation. Precisely because you find students who have done grade 9 going to do that. Others come having done grade 12 to go and do that. We've got different sets, which pedagogically, I'm told by educators, is not okay. We are now looking actually at perhaps having, possibly, two types of the National Certificate Vocational. The one that will focus on those who have just finished grade 9, so that we are also able to concentrate on strengthening their foundation. And maybe for those who have done grade 12, which will be shorter, because they've got certain competencies that can make them to be able to do faster. So it's an issue that we are addressing. Although I must say, over the last 3 years since our department was founded, the pass rate is improving.
Yeah.
From about 30% to now over 50%. So it's something that we are very pleased about in
right.
quite a number of instances.
The
Specific intervention.
I think
all what
you've
we've
spoken about that, so I'm going to jump that question because I think that's what we've been talking about the whole morning, isn't it?
Exactly.
Education over 50?
Oh yeah, our best example is Sipho Hot Sticks Mabusa, who is here, you know. And at the heart of post-school education and training is lifelong learning.
Can mature students get access to funding to study?
Can mature students get funding?
Bursaries, all these other things that you're offering young people.
Well, at the moment, I must admit, that our primary focus with bursaries is for youth and young people. I know that there are other institutions that offer bursaries for the elders in order to try and support that. The reason why we are doing it mainly for youngsters is not because we think that elderly people do not deserve it. It's just that our real Achilles heel for our democracy is young people. If we don't address the problems of our youth, we are in trouble.
All right, let's try and get as many questions as left as we got in here. 18, table 18. Very quick question, and I'll get the Minister to answer very quickly. Table 18.
Morning, Minister. I'm Helen Brown from Musita. We're actively involved with FET partnerships, and we have one question that industrial training requires highly competent and well-paid FET college lecturers. Yet remuneration packages are dismally low below market rates. And what are your thoughts to address this problem? Thank you.
Masita, yes. That is where this whole issue of the training of lecturers and as well as turnaround strategy for FET colleges focuses on this particular matter. Because you need qualified people to teach, for instance, engineering in your FET colleges. And yet those are the very same people who are grabbed by industry because it's people that we do not have in adequate numbers. One of the things that we are looking at, some colleges are doing this very well, by the way, is to have people in industry also acting as part-time lecturers in FET colleges. Part of our understanding on the National Skills Accord is that kind of partnership that we need to forge with employers, as well as, of course, to expose FET college lecturers to industry so that the quality of what they teach is important and be able to pay them. I'm very pleased also to say, by the way, that one of the things we've looked at now, we have implemented, is occupation-specific dispensation for FET college lecturers, because this was implemented only for school teachers but not for FET college lecturers, as part of improving salaries of FET college lecturers. But we will need to be very creative on this one that Masita is
I'm going to start
specifically.
wrapping things up very quickly. Hot Sticks, one very quick question before we disappear. Have you got a question? Yeah? Can we get it? Do you want to stand up, Bra? Stand up and then they can get an occupation. There we go. He's got a suit now that he's got.
I frankly didn't realize that I was here to
ask any questions.
Oh, okay.
I was just invited for breakfast, really. So.
Oh, all right. Well, it was good seeing you anyway.
No, but as I
Very
was
briefly,
I went to Malawi last year, and the presidential awards, I realized that the Americans would sort of take all the brighter students out of Malawi, especially the scientist ones. So I was wondering whether South Africa does the same. Thank you.
Okay.
There's the brain drain.
Very briefly.
It's a challenge for all countries. We are concerned about that particular matter. One of the ways we want to try and deal with that, obviously, is this community service for graduates, so that at least they are able to pay back in some ways. But we will have to have this as an effort by the whole country to ensure that we are able to keep our students, as many of them as possible here. It's interesting in South Africa, those tends to be more of an issue with white students, graduates, than black graduates. But for how long that will remain the case, it really is a challenge. We only hope that with these kinds of investments and the kinds of commitment and direction that government is taking to set our economy on a new growth path, beneficiation, build our manufacturing industry, and investment into infrastructure. We hope that, in fact, we are likely to attract graduates from other countries rather than our graduates going to Europe and the United States.
Minister, it's a conversation I'm sure that we can have for a long time, but unfortunately we have run out of time. And so I think on behalf of the viewers at home and the audience here, thank you very much indeed, Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Blade Nzimande, for your time.